Welcome back to Am I the Bolcast? I'm your host, Mike Carosa, probably better known as Mark Carbanza. It's back! I'm doing it again. I stopped doing it, but now I'm doing it again. Hey, Saffron Olive, how do you like that? Your boy's doing your thing again. Please come do the podcast at some point, buddy. You seem real nice. You know who else is real nice? My co-hosts here at Am I the Bolcast, the podcast where you ask us, am I the villain in this story? And the answer is, yeah, probably. My co-host with me, as always, is a champion. He's the author of the How They Brew It column over at commandersherald.com. Michael Solani, a.k.a. Games Freak SA. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Mike. Seriously, Saffron Olive, if you're listening, please. We need to make rent. It's very important. Call me.
Saffron Olive shows up on the podcast, writes us a check for rent. There's no money. It just says rent. And it works because all is right in the world. Is this too heavy on the Saffron Olive riffs on the top of the episode?
He's got his own line on our switchboard. It's dedicated to him, so I'm watching it like a hawk.
Yeah, you're trying to make sure that when he calls in, we know.
It's open.
What if we do an episode where we have a guest lined up, and as they're talking, we get interrupted by Morgan and says, "Hey guys, I know it's nice to have our guest on today, but Saffron Olive is calling in," and then we interrupt them and kick them off. But Saffron Olive is like, "Hey guys, I think I dialed the wrong number."
This would be great if your guest was someone like uber famous already. Like let's say you somehow get Biden on the podcast and you have Joe Biden.
Joe Biden on the podcast? He calls up?
Yeah, he plays stacks. Definitely plays stacks.
Okay, this is all right. Commentary. Hello. And that voice you heard before is our producer, Morgan Sanchez. Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Mark. I'm here making sure the switchboards, everything's operational. We're ready to go. And we got some dead air right now, guys. There's nobody calling in.
Well,
Morgan,
that's good.
You are watching the other switchboards other than the Saffron Olive line, right? You know we have multiple.
Morgan's in charge of the switchboards here, making sure that when we get a call, it comes right to us and we get to discussing. As I said, I'm Mike Carosa, a.k.a. Mark Carbanza. I write that Am I the Bolus column over at commandersherald.com. And as you may have guessed, that column might have a little something to do with this podcast we're doing called Am I the Bolcast, where a silly comedian and his pals talk about Magic the Gathering. And folks, let me tell you something. Before we get a phone call later today, which I'm sure we'll get, I think we should have a little bit of a discussion about the game we love so much and the format we love to play most, Commander, which, Morgan, favorite format in Magic is?
What is it? What game is it?
Okay, Magic the Gathering. The format is Commander. I thought you were like, yeah, this is my favorite format now that I've been doing the podcast.
Oh, yes. 4. No, Commander, also known as EDH, is a Magic the Gathering format where you play with 100 cards and have one legendary creature and or planeswalker is your commander. And yes, I love it so much. Oh my gosh. And it's been so fun to learn and play this game for the very first time ever. And I cannot wait to play it again.
What's next on the fandom wiki?
Yeah. Are you reading it with her, Michael? Are you on that too?
Those are solidly my notes, and they come off the top of my head. I didn't. It's all made up on the spot.
EDH or Commander is the format where you could play all cards but the banned ones from all of Magic's history. Cards that soup all-star cards, like Dockside Extortionist, which Morgan knows very well, as we've established in previous episodes, I'm sure.
My favorite red card.
It is a red card. You got it right.
It's my favorite one. Yeah.
Thank
you.
Okay.
I've learned a lot.
When you get it, you get kicked out of the football game after you get it, right?
You know what?
Was that one too forced?
I don't know what that means. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not understand that. There's a football game and wait. Am I crazy?
Yeah, don't you get kicked out when you get a red card? Isn't that a thing?
Oh, football. I was in soccer. Oh, well, yeah.
I was doing it for you. I thought Canadians also call it football, not soccer.
No, we have Canadian football, baby. We've got the CFL, the Canadian Football League.
But is it soccer?
Is that like American football at home?
It's a different football. It's slightly different football. There are 3 downs instead of 4. and the players don't make a living wage. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's terrible.
It's just like Commander then.
It really is. Have me on your streams and I will make nothing. I did the money, money, money sign with my fingers and there's no money in there.
Sports are hard.
Sports are hard.
Sports are hard, but Commander's not, thankfully.
Oh, you haven't seen my decks.
Wow.
That sounded like a threat, but since I'm kind of new to this, you guys. I'm kind of getting into the swing of things. I'm really digging it.
Michael sounded like he was threatening you, and you sound like you are condescending an entire format. Commander's not hard. Guys, it's not complicated.
Okay, well, you got to prove it cuz I'm looking for something like really simple to play.
Oh, well, there are lots of simple ways to play.
Something like Una, Queen of the Fae.
Wait, why?
Cuz it's mill. It's just get rid of cards. It's just exile stuff. It's just play blue-black. That's about as good as it gets.
But wouldn't a monocolor deck be more simple to play than a deck that has multiple colors?
Ah ha ha ha! Speaking as an Una Queer the Flay player who has a monocolored blue mill deck with Una at the helm, I can tell you I do play a mono blue colored deck with Una the Queen of the Fae, and it is easy, but it's really bad. Mill and Commander is not easy at all. It seems like it should be.
You just said Commander's easy. Which is it?
I didn't say it's easy. Morgan said it was easy.
No, you said it was easy. It was you.
I just said it's easy to play mono blue because you're putting lots of good cards in there. But it's not easy playing Mill.
Ken, roll it back.
Look, don't roll anything
roll it back. Have him say it.
If you do go back, I better sound pitched down in slow motion like, it's easy to play mono blue. Why'd I do that one?
See, he did say it.
Throw in some country music too, like some banjo fiddle. Do it.
We both
banjo
heard it.
fiddle. Hold on a second, guys. This is what I want to sound like in the back.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I want to sound like if you're gonna play it back. That's what I want.
Commander's not hard. Guys, it's not complicated.
Okay, look. So here's the thing. I don't think it's easy to play Mill and Commander. That's like 300 cards to get rid of, and like it's not easy. You know what is easy? Okay, I'll hit you with easy.
Being green.
Yes, it is easy being green. It's so easy being green. Play a lands deck. Do you know what deck is like brainless dumb nom-noms? Is a friggin' Azusa Lost But Seeking. Or like Omnath Locus of Mana deck. A mono green commander with landfall or land synergies or any of that. That's easy. You throw it together.
So we're playing 12 colors now with Omnath?
No, hold on a
Yeah, I
second.
can't wait for 6-color Omnath.
Yeah, six. You guys are both messed up. You know that, right? If
Hey.
we do get wait, we just got the 5-color on that and nobody cared. Isn't that crazy? Nobody cared.
I made a 5-color Omnath deck.
Do you have it for real?
It's secretly mono black, but don't tell anybody.
There we go. Thank you. I think it's easy to play like a Krenko deck or a Perforos God of the Forge. Make a bunch of goblin decks. Like those things are easy. But those things are fun. Ooh.
Hey, goblin decks are very complicated to the people that play them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't disparage them. They're trying very hard.
Oh, hey now. I'm sorry to the goblin players who are offended by this opening.
I am not.
Michael, we have a lot of goblins that listen. Conversely, maybe what's an archetype or like a commander that's like hard to play correctly?
Oh, that's easy. Phasing.
Well, okay, as an archetype, what archetype does phasing?
Yeah, Esper phasing.
There's an archetype. Oh no,
You
Michael.
get a bunch of things that phase out the opponent's permanents, and then you selectively make sure that only the things you want to get rid of are
Michael,
phased out or phased in.
I mean more in like a...
You make them skip their untap.
Michael.
Esper phasing.
No, Michael. I don't mean your decks. I don't mean which of your decks is difficult to pilot, because that's literally all of them. Your decks, if you handed somebody one of your decks and didn't explain the idea behind it, they would flounder and be like, what is this doing in here? And you'd have to be like, you see, now that is my deck where you're supposed to put everything back into the command zone, and you're only left with Barren Glory.
I don't think, first of all, Baron Glory is in the phasing deck.
I know it is.
Second of all, I don't believe that that's true for most of my decks, just some of them.
A lot of them. A lot of them. I'll give you a lot of them.
25% of my decks at most are completely incomprehensible.
They're the most fun, though. When you find out, see, okay, everybody should go read How They Brew It. Just give How They Brew It a read, and you'll understand what I'm saying. The deck should be functional, sure, but you're not going to be optimized. Like, you won't get your optimized experience from that deck without reading the deck tech. It's such a fun experience to go through How They Brew It. Again, this is just an ad for your column, honestly. Not mine. This is an ad for your column, surprisingly. Welcome to the How They Brew cast.
Solani, what is the worst commander you have brewed with?
Hold on. Is that like of a released article or just in general?
In general, like which one where you were like, this, you're trying to make it work maybe, and it's just awful and horrible and every single time, but maybe you do it anyways. Maybe there's more nuance. Maybe there's more, dare I say, context to this.
You're going to need to give me like 5 more hours to come up with the most complicated commander. I think the most complicated commander that I've brewed with have to be partner combinations, right? Because like if you take the partner on their own, they're very simple, but building them is the most challenging part, right? Because you have to not only realize that the two partners work together to accomplish the goal you're looking for, you have to like know out of all the 60 or so partners that exist that they are there and that you can use them together. You know, some partners just like go together like peas and carrots, and others are just like, huh? What?
Thank you for the reminder to have us eat our veggies too, Solani.
I really think it's important for all the goblins in the audience to eat their vegetables.
And also the reminder that I've been hanging on to switchboard this entire time and waiting for somebody.
Oh, did you finally look away from the saffron olive switchboard?
I just don't think it's going to happen, but I've got my fingers crossed. We're going to be spending a lot of money on just that one line, the priority line, to interrupt whoever we've got on a call, which will be this next individual.
Well, we're not going to interrupt this next individual. I think we're just going to dive right in and let them have their time. Look, as much as we think Saffron Olive can interrupt anybody, no. We give every caller their due. That's the Am I the Bolcast guarantee.
This is the Am I the Bolcast covering my butt to get more guests on the podcast line.
Oh, God, what is happening? Can we get the call going?
Let's open up that line, guys.
Ring, ring, baby. It's time to take a friggity phone call, baby. Oh, sounds like we got a caller on the line. Caller, identify yourself. Who do we have with us today?
Hello, it's me, Jimmy Wong from the Command Zone podcast and Game Nights.
Oh boy, do I know you. I guess I should say big fan of the Command Zone, big fan of Game Nights, longtime fan. And
thank you.
Can't state enough. Just so thrilled to have you here on the podcast with us on Emma the Bolcast. Really, let me just say, quite the get. Patting ourselves on the back over here.
Woohoo.
Quite the get.
Good pack one, pick one, huh?
Hell yeah, dude. And how you been? How's things for you?
I've been good. I've been very good, thank you. We just got back from MagicCon Las Vegas. Were you there?
Ooh. No, I was not. No, I was at Commander Seal the weekend before, but that's
Cool.
That's all the con I could get in me this year.
Yeah. So we got back from that a few weeks ago. Still recovering. That is always like one of the longest weeks of our lives, just because when you're done with the con, you have a lot of other things you can do, and you end up staying up late and seeing, because it's the one where everyone tries to go to it, so you get to see a lot of people you haven't seen in a while. But yeah, that was great. We had a Game Nights Live show there. And yeah, now we're back and just back into the grind, back into the groove.
The grind of LA, the grind of Command Zone,
Content
the
creation.
grind of it all.
Yep.
Content creation, baby. Vegas will take it out of you, but then you got more steam, full steam ahead, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is a podcast about pet peeves in Magic. It's about stories that maybe you were the villain in. What, Jimmy Wong, if you don't mind leading us off here, what would you say is your pet peeve when it comes to Magic in general or EDH in particular?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I would say my number one pet peeve is players that either, and I've been this person, by the way, just full disclosure, that don't know how the things in their deck work at crucial moments, or as a result of taking too long or whatever, just sort of apologize too much. And again, I've been this person both times. I've been
this person.
Yeah, we've all been this person, right? So the reasoning behind it is that I think, in general, when you show up to the table, you bring a deck, you want to try something out. There's a lot of hey, I just want to test this out and see how it goes. And oftentimes we can accidentally do things like go infinite or, find some sort of loopable combo that doesn't do the thing. I famously did not realize I could go infinite on a specific episode of Game Nights one time that people still think I just did on purpose, which is bizarre to me, because if I have a chance to win the game, I take it.
Yeah, and you're also running a show. You want it to be entertaining, so you're not over here being like, oh, let me look like a big dum-dum and not, clue in on it. It happens.
And my sort of thing is, instead of sitting there and going, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing, hold on, let me just figure this out, and spending another 20 minutes sitting at the table, because I've done that too, is I'll just go, you know what, I think this is the end of this, I'm just going to pass the turn. Because I really don't like, again, being in that situation where I don't know what I'm doing, everyone else is waiting on me, and I feel like I actually owe it to myself and the table to hurry it up / just figure out what it is I'm trying to get to, like the end state, whether it's an infinite combo or whether it's a sequencing thing or whatever it is. Because I also think a big part of Commander and the joy of Commander is making mistakes and just playing in a slightly looser fashion, unless you're going the full CDH route. But I find there's a lot of joy in just winging it, doing what feels like is right, even if it may not be the right choice or the most optimal play. Leave that to limited, leave that to your constructed formats that aren't Commander, and just try and have fun with it.
The unexpected discoveries happen in mistakes oftentimes. They share the same, they're two sides of the same coin, is what it feels like,
Yeah.
I love that. Commander lives in the mistakes. It's so fun.
Yeah, and that's why you're gathered with your friends on a Friday night, to be silly and to do crazy things. And, if people are drinking a beer, or they're, having a side conversation, or they're at a party. I was just actually at, Brian Kibler had a birthday party hosted at his house for Olivia's birthday.
Happy birthday, Kibler. Oh, happy birthday, Olivia.
It's always Kibler's birthday. It was Olivia's birthday party, and it was a great time because, there are people that were just sitting and looking through cards on one side, and the Commander game that was really casual. Everyone was playing really high-powered stuff, but the game itself took probably 30 minutes longer than it needed to, because people would come in and talk to you, or someone would say something, or oh, the pizza's here, And so I think that kind of Commander has always been my favorite. It's what I started playing Commander as. And so when people don't know what to do with their deck and they start to endlessly apologize, part of me is one, it's okay. Just do something else. And there have been times where I've held a card in my hand where I'm like, uh-oh, if I do this, I'm going to copy some enter the battlefield things. I'm going to make 7 copies of a creature, and they're all going to trigger each other. I'm just not going to play. I'm going to imagine this card doesn't exist in my hand. And that, to me, is a more optimal scenario than playing it and going, I don't know what's going to happen here. And it's going to require someone else to step in, hopefully with the rules knowledge to do it.
That's fun.
Especially if it's a win con, and you're like, I think I win, and you can't explain why you win. Then I'm like, that feels bad. You need to at least tell me why you're winning right now, instead of just going, I read this on the internet somewhere and it should work.
Right. There's a difference between having like, I don't know, what's that Fanatic of Mogus? If you have like 40 copies of that entering, you're like, I think I win.
Yeah.
Because
or
the
a
card
Critter
says
Hoof, it's
damage.
like, okay, you
get it.
clearly have enough. But if it's like, this is a
Absolutely.
weird drain life effect that happens now that I have 5 of these allies that trigger each other, it's like, oh no.
You're like, okay, all right. If I don't have the patience for it, I don't think anybody else will.
Yeah.
I do like. I'm a big fan personally of engines when it comes to Commander.
Sure,
Like one of my favorite things, one of my favorite decks is my Lizolda, the Blood Witch deck that our mutual pal Rachel Weeks has said that she quite likes. But I think what happens every time I play Rachel is kind of what you're saying, but I'm not out here apologizing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think with that kind of deck, what keeps happening is I know the deck well enough that it keeps moving along, but there are new pieces of information that present themselves.
Right.
Now, when it comes to your pet peeve, is it more so the inexperience with the deck and that it's taking too long, or is it partly also the taking long?
So I think it's okay to take a long time as long as it's productive, and because everyone is there, right? It's not just you and one other person. It's you and 3 other people typically that have all agreed to sit at this table. And if you're the person that has on the game clock, taken 3 times as much time as everyone else, in a way, other players are not enjoying as much gameplay as you are.
Yeah.
It's like you're the ball hog, but, everyone in this case has their own turn to play with the basketball or whatever. Because I think inexperience with the deck, the first time you play a deck, you're always going to be inexperienced with it, especially if you're a new player. Like, that's the last person I want to listen to this and go, what? This is not fair. I'm a brand new player. I don't know what any of the cards do. In that case, I think everyone already has that understanding going into the game, or they should. And I never hold that against someone because we've all been in that position. But it's the more like, I've spent a lot of time brewing this deck. I've come here to the table, and now I'm going to sit here and twiddle and not actually know what the end result is. And I'm just going to waste people's times. And then at the end of it, it's like, cool. And I make 3 1/1s, and that's it. Pass the turn. And it's like, oh gosh. We just spent 15 minutes for that to happen. Like, how can we not have that happen every turn? Because otherwise, we're not going to get as many games in tonight. Is there a way to, again, if I'm the person in that scenario, I just don't play a card if I don't know the outcome and I don't want to figure it out. And I think it's going to inconvenience the table. So it's a little bit of that anxiety. Like, I don't want other people to get upset at me. But in general, I think one of the goals of Commander, once you start getting more into it and playing more, is making games quick, efficient, and fun. And when you're really actively holding up a game because you don't know what's happening and you're the reason, it's not just that you have a complicated engine. That's okay if you have like 16 triggers and get through all of them. But if it's like, I don't know actually what is happening and how to do anything, that adds to the intensity of like the please hurry up.
There's a difference between being in the tank and kind of working it out than being in the tank for the first time.
Yeah.
I think the most fun you can have, sometimes there's some decks that are just better goldfish decks,
Sure.
You should get to know your decks. You came up with it, you put it together, shuffle up and play on your own, every now and then assume that somebody's taking care of a key piece on your board and make sure you factor that into it as well.
Yeah,
but
totally.
You should absolutely spend so much time getting to know your deck. And I think do you feel like maybe, because we get a lot of product and there's obviously a lot of there's an increasing amount of FOMO in the game right now where new commanders come out and people are like, well, I want to build the next big thing or whatever.
Sure.
I don't particularly think that that's like a huge catalyst for this happening, but I think that maybe some people that is kind of what's pushing them to be like, well, hold on, I don't really know my deck so well.
Yeah, I think a card like Sauron, like the last one that triggers every time an opponent casts a spell. One of the problems of I don't know how my deck works in that case is that you're actively creating a game state that is not actually accurate. You don't have, an arena or an MTGO that's sitting there being like, trigger happens, someone has to respond to it or say yes or whatever. Right. And so that's a downside too, is because you don't want to play a game that's inaccurate, where you pass, you go by 4 to 5 turns and everyone goes, oh, you haven't been remembering this trigger on your board, and it actually would really have affected my turn, this person's turn, and everything that happened. So in that case, you're actually damaging the integrity of the game and what's supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
And then people might feel like, oh, I don't actually win this game because if you remember that trigger, I might have been at a lower life total. That would have affected this combat, or this creature wouldn't die because of this -1/-1 ability, etc. So it's
Right.
okay to like
Your
make
orc
gameplay
army.
errors, but I think it's worse to like misrepresent the game state as a result of you not knowing what's happening or like basically like taking care of your own triggers or whatever. It's like it's your upkeep in a way to know, hey, my Sauron triggered 6 times or the Ristic study or whatever. I hate asking
Right.
the question, but it's technically what has to happen.
It needs to happen. It's
Because it really
Yeah,
does
this
affect
is
games,
solid-
right? And it compounds over
totally
time.
does. Yeah. So this is what's interesting. Let me not to be like this is what's interesting about my own podcast, but this is what I find interesting about the podcast, because clearly coming from a perspective of we're going to discuss a pet peeve or a personal story.
Yeah.
Obviously, it starts with the personal. It's subjective. It comes from one individual. Then we apply it to the mass, and then I like to find out why, in particular, this is what hits you in that space where you're like, this bothers me more than other things.
Right.
And I feel like you did touch on it where, like, has this always been the case prior to the fame in the sphere of, like, you know, I want to get to these games with other people, and maybe I've had to deal with this kind of, like, I don't know my triggers and stuff a little too often. Did you find yourself experiencing this even before it's Jimmy Wong, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, the first time this happened was very, very early on when I started playing Commander, like before the podcast really took off. And I've probably had similar things happen in board games and stuff, too, growing up and playing because, you know, like, I think one time we played a game of Risk and we just did combat wrong, and it would have completely have changed how stuff works and how all the arguments that went through it also would have played out. And it happens in Limited, too. I was playing the Unknown event at MagicCon Vegas.
Sick.
And yeah, these have these like cool playtest cards that don't exist in real life. And one of them had protection from squirrels on it. And it was like an Emrakul X like squirrel
Oh, that's
card.
right.
And I had to kill target creature with flying card in my hand. And I was thinking, well, the past Emrakul had protection from instants and sorcerer or whatever. So I don't think I can use this on this card. So I asked the opponent, like, hey, does protection from squirrels mean protection from everything, like spells and other things? And the person was like, well, yeah, clear. Oh, I think it was like protection from everything. Either way, it was a very weirdly worded card. And the person was like, no, it definitely is. You can't cast that on this. And I was like, okay, fine. And then later on, I found Gavin. I was like, hey, Gavin, how does this work? And he's like, oh, no, you could totally have used that. I'm like, oh, that changed the entire game. And the other person was so confident that I just believe them. So I think I've always been irritated by stuff like that because, again, the ultimate thing that bothers me is when it changes the fundamental outcome of the game.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then it can lead to like a lot of bad feels for everyone. You know, even the person
100%.
winning might not feel like they deserve the win or whatever. So I think that's where it comes from is like, I just want things to, in a perfect world, if I'm making a mistake, I'm making a mistake. But I'd rather not be like, hey, I just didn't do this correctly. The rules weren't right. I lied because I thought it was this way, but it wasn't. You know, and that's when it gets into like oh man, things feel bad now.
Let me hit you with this because this is the juice, buddy. This is the best part. You said, I think I even noticed back when I played board games with the buddies back in the day, like that to me, that's a fun little insight because first of all, board games, you end up with house rules. Who hasn't heard of free parking and Monopoly getting you a little cash?
Totally.
That's not in the rules. Uno is completely wrong. As a society, we've decided that Uno is played a certain way, and it is not. To the point where people on Twitter are like correcting the people who make Uno, saying that's just not it. But also, I do like you want to appreciate the thing as it's made, right? You want to like. There's nothing better than like a good board game. Like Magic is an incredible game, but then you play something like Ticket to Ride, and you're like, this is wild. Now you get to know the game a little bit better, but you know what happens when you mess up a rule. And I just want to know: are you somebody? You get a board game, even back in the day or today, you get a new board game. Are you the rule book guy?
It's either me or one of my friends, and I got really into board game because my friend was the rulebook guy. And every single time we would play, it would be, all right, you read through the rule book, and then like I'll read through like, because there's usually like a secondary rule book with like a glossary of terms. Like I'll read through that one, and we're gonna swap, and then we're both gonna read through both of them, and then we're going to try and play this game together. And then maybe if we like it enough, we'll invite more people to play it with us next time, because then both of us can sit here and explain it to people. But if it's just me and I'm trying to introduce a board game to the person, I'm like instantly like, I have to be the rules person, because I will be diligent enough to read the rules the night before or whatever and just make sure. And then like kind of have a big part of it too is like having a memory of where in the rule book certain things are said. Because when someone inevitably has a question, you don't want to sit there and like go through every single page again. You have to be like, okay, I think that was in this section. Oh, that's the paragraph. Yeah, this is where it says it. And then my pet peeve in that case is when they don't use consistent language to describe something that's happening.
Ooh. Oh, buddy, snaps from me. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, like this card is played or this card is put onto the battlefield from the, right? Like Magic already has it, and they over time have been very clear about how it works if it was cast from your hand. But rule books would just often be like, when this happens, it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Happening?
You said trigger before, and now you're saying happens here, you know? So
That's perfect. I'm let me just say, same way. My girlfriend and I, since moving out east in Montreal, we've been like bigger on the board game nights. We'll have friends over, but she's definitely the, okay, give Mike the rule book. He'll please just give it to him. He won't sit still until he reads it. And then I'll be like, okay, we know how to play the game now. I'll explain it as best as I can, and some things we'll leave until it happens.
Exactly. It's like, this is a weird corner case scenario that this thing is telling me. You know what? I'm not going to read this paragraph. When we get there, we'll get there.
Yeah, it's like, man, we play too many games. It's just such a good time.
Yeah, one of my favorite Onion articles of all time is explanation of board game rules peppered with reassurances that it will be fun. Because the more you explain the rules, everyone's eyes start to glaze over, and then they get skeptical, and they're like, why am I here? This wasn't what I expected.
There's a solid Anti-Donna sketch where I think it's Broden trying to explain the rules to a board game to the other boys, and it goes exactly as you think it would. It's exactly But anyway, I do think, as it relates to Magic, it is fun to see that the core thing coming from you is you don't want to waste anybody's time, and I think that's such a fun value to this, because already the time that you have together, valuable. You just want to hang out, have a good time. And when somebody's in the tank that long, still trying to spin their wheels and it's not working out, it takes you out of a moment, and that'll feel like a waste of time. So I could see that being the through line here with the rules and all that stuff. And I think that's a fine pet peeve. I am right there with you. I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah,
feels like that's what it's about.
That is totally what it's about. And it's really important, too, I think, to play enough that you're comfortable with any outcome. I think, like, I watch Kenji a lot as a streamer, and I've been watching him for almost 10 years now, and I've seen him go through some bad beats. Like you cannot believe how many lands this guy just drew in a row in one of the most important matches for a qualifier or whatever it is. And you're rooting for him in every way. And then you watch him go, that's Magic, baby, and then just smile and move on to the next game. And it's really honorable, I think, to see that, because they played so much. They understand that winning and losing are just an aspect of the game, but not what the game's all about. And they can look at the game and go, I played that as well as I could have. I played to my outs. I did everything I could. And then it also just makes the moments when they do get that card that they were looking for all the sweeter and all the much better. So I think like there is a lot of value in what you said there, which is like, you're ultimately you die with yourself, and you're going to die with your memories and how you treated the world or whatever. And so the more fun you can have on the way out, probably the better it's going to be for you in the long run.
Kyle Kinane said on his Whiskey Icarus special, I'm not here in life to be a goalie. As long as you're not hurting anybody, I'm here to either help or get out of the way.
Oh,
and
nice.
That's all it is.
Nice.
That fun philosophy to live by. Let people have their fun unless they're being garbage about it and, they're hurting people. Then in which case you got to step up. But be there, let people have their fun or help them have their fun.
Yeah, totally.
It's a good time.
Yeah, and like again, it's all about that magic moment where everyone is all going like this and going, "What? No way!" Or you do something and you're like, "That was crazy," and I'm dead, but it was so worth it.
Right. Well, I mean, we've seen you die to your own ancient tomb by your own volition on game nights before, right? We've seen...
I mean, I've been embodying this spirit for a long time, and then maybe that's why people like watching me play, is because I have the screw it, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and I'm just gonna go out on my own terms type of gameplay. And I like to live with my mistakes too, because I think it's the most human thing you can do. So that to me is like the fun in gaming, and maybe that's just the red player and the chaotic nature in me. But I think, like, it would be boring if you had 4 of me at every table. You'd get tiresome fast. And it would also be boring if you had 4 of Josh at every table too. So I think you have to have, the essence of different, and maybe that's why Magic's great, because each color is its own thing. I love playing with Rachel, I love playing with Josh, I love playing with all different people, but I would hate to play a game where it's 3 Joshes and 1 me, because I'm not going to win that game, and I'm not going to have fun in that game. I love playing a game where it's like me and a couple other friends that give a good mix of the color pie, but also in terms of like player type. And that to me is like the essence of Magic, is like you're playing with people that are going to surprise you, and the surprise is so much fun and exciting and excitement too.
That rules. I can't say anything else but that rules.
Thanks.
I love to hear it, man. That is so beautiful.
That's Magic, true. Baby.
That's
Every time Kenji says that, I'm like, this guy's a better man than me, because I'd be tilted off the face of the planet if this was happening to me.
Yeah, you take a walk, you're like, I don't smoke, but I'm starting today. You just...
Yeah, give me a beer.
And take out a plate that you're like, this is for smashing, that's for eating. Did I get it out the right cupboard?
Yeah, exactly. Get out of the way.
Jimmy, I can't thank you enough for calling in. I can't thank you enough for joining me today. And, dude, thank you so much. Please tell anybody listening where you'd like them to turn their attention to catch you, to watch you, to follow you, anything.
Well, obviously, you could just look up the Command Zone on YouTube, or Game Nights. That's Nights with a K. And that's, I'd say, the best place to go.
Right.
And I would give a shout out to Rachel Weeks. We both mentioned her a couple times this episode. She's someone that I think absolutely improves the health of the game as a whole, just with her attitude, her ability, and just everything. And she's actually helping with the podcast a bunch now, and she's really heading up, bringing interesting, fun types of episodes to the show. So 100% make sure you check out the podcast, especially now that Rachel is at the helm. I think she's massively improved it and brought a bunch of new life to it too. So I'm always very grateful to her.
She's a huge breath of fresh air, and it's been going great. I mean, it feels like she brings out something great in both of you guys, or anybody that she's paired with. And I've known Rachel since we did a comedy festival like back in the day.
Oh,
and to see her kind of like,
lucky you.
Been knowing her for a while, and she's always been so great and so kind and open-hearted. It's just been it's been really cool to watch her like do so well, and to see people appreciate her the way she deserves to be. So it's cool to have you be like,
this just turns into a Rachel Weeks appreciation podcast.
She's on Sunday. I'm talking to her on Sunday for this.
Oh, amazing. You can let her know. Yeah, I think to keep it going a little bit, like we had Sheldon, who's an amazing steward of the format, and that word steward is really important here. And I think Rachel absolutely embodies that same concept and idea, which is she's a steward of the game in a lot of ways. All of us are, right, with our podcasts and our shows. And being able to show the world through action, through gameplay, through deck building, through whatever ways to enjoy the game in a way that helps bring more happiness is definitely something that we all desperately need.
That rules. And that's Magic, baby.
That's Magic, baby.
Wowee, can you believe it? Jimmy Wong of the Command Zone calling our friggin' radio show over here. What? You kidding me? The guy that I've been listening to on podcasts and watching on YouTube podcasts for, God, it feels like a silly amount of time, like 8 years now? Does that make sense? Jeez. Well, thank you for calling, Jimmy Wong.
I don't think I've ever done anything for 8 years.
Hey, try breathing. Oh, boy, smart ass alert. How about you been breathing that long, buddy? Uh-oh, this guy over here's gonna be a real
How old are you,
a
bud?
real smarty pants.
Sounds like somebody's the bolus.
Actually, no, I take all of my oxygen in through processed foodstuffs. It's just like how I get all my water from Coca-Cola.
Eat fresh. Oh man, I messed that up.
I'm holding a Taco Bell cup, you idiot. This doesn't eat fresh.
Hey man, I had Subway today. Eat fresh. Guys, first of all, thank you, Jimmy Wong, for calling in. We appreciate you very, very much. Everybody should check out the Command Zone and game nights, of course, if you aren't already. Thank you, Jimmy Wong, for coming on the show and talking to us. Now, before we dive into the question, before we dive into our discussion, we should have Morgan explain the voting system. It's been, look, we're episode 4 now. Episode 4. Our audience should know the voting system by now, but we have some people jumping in for the first time, and who's going to blame you? No one blames you. Thank you for listening. But when it comes to determining whether or not our caller is the bolus, we have a bit of a system for that. Morgan, tell our listeners what our system is.
Well, you can have a lot of confidence in our system because it has been scientifically proven. I mean, this is the 4th episode. We've basically got enough data to have a case study at this point. But to break it down in simple terms, our voting system is points-based. So that means there will be numbers and math at the very start, okay? And if it's your first time listening, grab a pen and paper. You can pause the podcast right here. None of us are going to get mad about it. You know, this is pre-recorded. This is not a live show.
We will not. We won't be able to tell.
So starting at the top is my vote. So my vote counts for a singular point, which means 1.
Okay, good. Everybody
right.
got it?
Yeah.
Everybody got it.
Can
Cool.
I ready to go to the next part
point.
probably?
Next
Okay.
point.
So Solani
Yes?
is his own person, right?
Uh-huh.
So he has a vote, which is a 1 vote, a singular vote.
Solani trying so hard not to laugh at you calling him his own person.
Yeah.
See, this is why I need to unionize.
So as his own person, he gets what? What's the measly thing he gets for for being in person?
1 person, 1 vote.
Got it.
And then this is where it gets a little tricky.
A
So
little
when it comes to
complicated. We called a couple people over at MIT, Harvard, Yale. We had an underground cabal meeting, sorted it all out, did all the math, and made it all checks out. People,
We got some Carnegie Mellon heads in here.
there we go. Practice, and go left.
Mike Carrozza,
That's me, aka
That's him.
probably better known as Mark Carbanza. Let's be real.
so his vote as his own person
Which I appreciate very much.
is going to count for 3 points, which is the number 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 points,
That's right.
3 votes,
That's right.
1 person.
Perfect. And I can split them among either way. Yes, bolus, no bolus.
Yep, checks out.
Okay, I get 3 points. Okay.
Wait, what? You can do that? Seriously?
I didn't realize
We had a case study about it. You didn't read the email? We sent it out.
I can do that, but I'll say I think my vote counting for 3 makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But we had a whole debate with this. Oh, Dr. Turjan over at Yale was not pleased with us. We had to walk out on that meeting. So, look, okay. So now that you know the voting system, and we took a lot of time to talk about it, let's get into the question. Morgan, sum it up for me. Is Jimmy the bolus?
Well, Jimmy wants to know, am I the bolus for being annoyed when people don't know how to play their decks?
Michael Solani, you have the floor.
Look, I don't even know how to play my own decks.
Fair.
I don't think it's fair to be mad at someone for not knowing how to play their deck. Like, that happens sometimes. Sometimes you're building a new deck and you don't know how to play it. Or sometimes you're just, like, having a bad day and you're like, guys, I'm really not able to play this at full capacity right now. And that's totally fine. Like, as long as it's not an egregious violation, like, it's completely normal to not have 100% perfect play Unless you're Jimmy, of course. He's flawless in his execution and game plan.
I mean, he's the first to admit that he is not that flawless at all.
So what you're saying is Jimmy does not know how to play his own decks 100% of the time. You're calling him a hypocrite.
Uh-oh, I didn't call him that. You called him that. Now, what is your vote then? Are you thinking that, yeah?
I think that I'm going to hate relying on this the entire run of the podcast, but it does depend on the context.
Oh, boo. The podcast where people come to us for definitive answers on situations that do need more context and have gray areas and are actually interpersonal relationship situations that are a lot more complicated than a simple question. What a cop-out.
Look, you tried teaching interpersonal relationships to Magic the Gathering players. I think that in general, you are the bolus if you're mad at someone for not knowing how to play their deck 100%.
Okay, that's fair, and I respect you. Morgan Sanchez.
So my context in this situation is that I want to say that I'll just get it out of the way, and I'll vote before I speak, which is just how we do things here in America. And I will say,
in America, you vote before you think.
I thought you don't vote in America, most of you guys. Am I learning something today? What's happening?
this is an educational show. It's educational for everyone, no matter what country, state, or planet that you're on. But I want to say that Jimmy is not the bolus, because the context for me is that I want to be transparent with it, just upfront about it. If I'm playing something that I don't know, or I am having a day, or it is like just kind of like I'm feeling a little
you're
like
having a what day? Can bleep it.
I'm having a wonderful day, Mark. Thank you very much. I appreciate you
That's
asking.
2 quarters in the jar, Morgan.
Yeah, because it's number 2 word.
Well, we're just gonna have to make sure that we bug Saffron Olive for those quarters.
Why are we acting like he's money bags? I don't think that's a fair thing. What are we doing here?
I would hope that he would have the 2 quarters, though, just for charity.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I hope everybody has 2 quarters, but you know what I mean.
All right, let's stop talking about the 2 quarters and let's start talking more about your 2 cents, Morgan.
Oh, but wait, I have a soundboard. Hold on, wait.
Oh boy.
We did it.
So yeah, I really don't fault Jimmy for thinking that, like, just tell me, dude, if you're not having a great day, if the deck is new to you, I just added, an entirely new combo to this, like, let me know up front, just so that I don't feel bolusy for being like, bro, what are you doing? Pass the turn, do the thing, right? So I'm gonna say Jimmy's not the bolus.
Okay.
Not even a little bit.
Well, it's time for me to opine on the matter, and I'm gonna say I'm with Jimmy on this. I think that if you have a deck and you don't take time to, like, play it a couple times on your own, like get a little solitaire going, especially if you're somebody who builds like very interactive, synergistic decks, play them out a little bit on your own, The thing is, Magic is a game where you've got 4 decks at a table interacting with each other, and sometimes those cards, you're not going to be able to predict a bunch of interactions. Oh no, how does my deck work when Knowledge Pool is in play? I don't know. You're going to find out when that happens, but at the very least, you should have a base level of understanding of what your deck does, and maybe come up to a point where you've goldfished or like solitaired the deck a few times to know that there's some interactions that come up more often than not, and you should have a ruling if you've ever asked yourself a question of like, how does Explore work with this or that? If like that's a mechanic that you have come up or something along those lines, So know your deck. I don't think it's a matter of knowing your deck perfectly, but like know your deck a little bit. Even if it's a new deck, I have a brand new deck that I'm excited about. Took some time after the Doctor Who release. I really hunkered down, found my favorite pairing, the 9th Doctor and Clara Oswald. Upkeeps, doubling, tripling, quadrupling, quintupling, sextupling, septupling, octupling.
Go.
Dodecatupling. 12 of them.
You missed non-tupling. Hoochie Kochi would be so mad at you.
I don't know them. I stop at Octo. Anyway, my point is, I have this deck, but I've been like goldfishing it a bunch, and I know what happens when I have to stack upkeeps. You don't just resolve 12 of the same trigger. If you have different upkeeps, you have to like stack them in that way, and so you get to that point where you learn your deck a little bit better. And that's on me as somebody who built the deck to be this way. So I would say take some time. You're already taking time to build the deck. Get to know your deck. So I don't think Jimmy's the bolus because it is a frustrating experience to sit down at a table and have to correct somebody on their own deck. But if somebody's new to the experience, like, you got to be nice to them. There's no excuse for being rude. I don't think that's what we're calling for here. We're just kind of saying, hey, know what you're talking about. And that'll do it for Jimmy.
Mark, can you add up the votes? Because I tried to follow. I tried to count while you were. Yeah.
So Michael said not. Jimmy is the bolus. Mm-hmm. Morgan said Jimmy is not the bolus, and I said Jimmy is not the bolus. So we got 1 to 4.
Got
for
it.
Not the bolus. So 4 beats 1 in math. And so, Jimmy, you are not the bolus. So thank you for calling in and for not being the bad guy. I think it's time to go into a brand new segment on the podcast. We heard you. We say, hey now. Good idea.
You're an all-star.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Excellent idea. And we were talking about, yes, let's get some user submissions on the podcast. Now, here's the thing. We don't have many. Some people took it upon themselves to send us submissions. And to you, I say, thank you so much. That's very, very nice. But other people don't know about it. So now we're telling you. You can send in submissions. You can send us a message on Twitter at AmITheBolcast. You can send us an email, amithebolus@gmail.com, where I'll take your submissions for my column as well as the podcast. Know that if you're submitting for the column, it's probably also going to get discussed on the podcast if it's something that we haven't talked about yet or it works really well with our caller. So today we have one listener submission, rather. That was a Reddit post submitted to us by a pal of the show who does not want me to use his name, but thank you. And can bleep it? Thank you.
The name.
I can't believe I didn't send it.
So President sent us this Reddit post. So here we go. Let's talk about this. The Reddit post, the subject says, is it bad asking for a 5-player Commander game when there are only 5 players in the store? I was sat there for an hour and 30 minutes. They refused to play a 5-player game as it would take too long. They never swapped players, and I just sat there. I drove in as well to play and ended up leaving as they all said they were going after their 3rd game, and I sat through all 3 games by that point. Personally, I would try to involve everyone so nobody was missing out, so I find it very rude when this happens. I'm new to Magic. I've only been playing it for about a year, but this is the first time this has happened to me. I don't see an issue with having a 5-player game, especially when it could isolate someone from enjoying the game. If I'm wrong, I would rather know. So, user on Reddit at r/EDH submitted that to the Reddit page. And my dear friend, President Joe, sent it to us and said, you should talk about this on the podcast. And here we are. What do you guys think about this submission?
Morgan, why don't you take it first?
I think it's, well, dare I say, the context of this situation is just utterly tragic. And I feel really bad for this person because I feel like we've probably all been here, whether we're new or not. We're just super jazzed. We want to play, maybe I want to meet these people, or I kind of just saw from the corner of my eye, you guys had like a really cool play group, really cool decks, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of nuance, though, that comes with wanting to play a 5-player game. I feel like every EDH player, it's either going to be, oh yeah, let's do it like right now, or absolutely freaking not. I would rather go home to my wife at some point in the next decade. So it's tough because, I mean, it's nice to feel included. I feel like going 0 for 5 is just like really rough, though. Like there should have been somebody who, was willing to just, like a couple of them even, just...
You mean 0 for 3 because they played 3 games and excluded them?
Well, in terms of like the amount of players, yeah. Like...
Yeah.
So... Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to kind of compromise on something different is really rough. And I think that's probably where a lot of the sadness in this comes from, because I would probably feel bad for that, especially if I told them that I was new. I would really want even not a 5-player game. Like just give me 3 of those people. Let's go. Let's just do something real quick. Maybe you've got like some CEDH monster thing that you just wipe the floor with and then put me in my place and I'll never ask again. That's what I would have done if I didn't want to do it, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, let's get Joe Schmo over there with Crazy Deck and just eat
Biden.
this and just eat this guy so that he never asks to play a 5 like this is taboo, right? So
I mean, okay, well that's an interesting take, I'll say. Michael, do you want to go next, or should I go for it?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
I feel bad for this guy on like several levels. One, you go into a store and there's only 5 people there. I mean, I assume he means like 5 people playing Commander, but I just picture like this gigantic row of tables, all these folding tables out there. Then there's like 4 people like sitting in a corner,
Yeah, buddy.
and like the rest of it's just completely empty.
I've been there. Haven't you been to an LGS that happens at? It's happened. It's not
No,
great.
I live in Chicago. Everything is
Okay.
jumping all the time.
All right.
party rocking in the house tonight at every LGS in the area. Confirmed.
Yeah, it's truly one of the times.
Well, then I can't wait to be there.
I think that I agree that 5-player games are terrible. And by the way, Morgan, when you said, like, I want to come home to my wife after 10 years, like, the way I heard that was like you were saying, I would rather go home to my wife than play a 5-person Commander game.
I would. I'll put it on record, too. I would rather go home to my wife than play a 5-person Commander game in most circumstances. Okay, like, again, Solani, what's the word? Context.
Yes.
But if we're talking like math, if we're talking like real big brain math, 99.9%
I'm so confused.
would be like my...
You don't know that number. You can barely count to 3.
Okay, you know what? I made it up. It's fine. But it sounds right enough, and that's all that matters because, again, we're here in America, and what you say just makes sense.
Of course. Anyway, I think that what really should have happened is one of those guys should have taken a break. Like, that's the real solution.
Agreed.
Right?
Thank you.
Like, it's the clear and obvious solution to me in this scenario. Just, like, have one of the guys sit out after a game and just, like, drink a Sprite.
Thank you.
Or a Sierra Mist. I'm sorry, a Starry. Drink a Starry. And then they could just, like, jump in for the next game, you know? It's not... You don't have to play 3 games in a row.
No, you don't. Especially if you see somebody at the beginning of your second game excitedly like, okay, does this mean I get to jump in? And you're like, nah, you got to wait for the next pod to fire. It's like, excuse me, dude, if you wanted to just exclude people when you're in a public space like that, a place where people congregate to straight up just play this game with other strangers, dude, if you're a group of friends, find somewhere else. This feels like so counterintuitive to the entire ethos of like a play space or like an LGS. Like, look, it's one thing if this person has come around and is not a good person. If he comes around and he's real mean, he's not cool, and has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way continuously, and that's the reason that they're shutting them out. Well, that's the reason. That's not because, but like, it sounds like this guy's real new, showed up after driving to the LGS, like, I want to play some of this game I love. Hey, I just read about LGSs online and found out where the one nearest me is, and let me get excited to play my, like, 2 upgraded precons at this night, and shows up, and you just sit down for 90 minutes, hoping that this is the turn that ends the game so that you can finally jump in, and they start another game? They just don't have any consideration after, like, being asked to join.
If I wanted to go somewhere and sit down for 90 minutes and have nothing of substance happen, I would have gone and purchased a ticket for The Flash. Like, seriously.
Shots fired, The Flash. Your move.
Your move, Ezra.
Yeah, your move, The Flash. Hey, it says here, hold for response for The Flash. All right, so I guess that's the end of the episode, and we'll hear back from The Flash next week, probably, I guess.
Morgan, do you have that? Did you install that Flash specific switchboard? I sent it to you just 5 minutes ago.
Oh, God.
We're still waiting on Seth, man. We really just don't have it in the budget to have another line open right now.
No,
Yeah.
no other line. It's just Flash.
I'm just picturing you turning around and the switchboard for like the actual guests is just like crackling and sparking and like slightly on fire, and there's a big bite taken out of it somehow.
It's a tasty switchboard. What can I say? All right, well, that pause tells me it's over. Guys, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me. Thank you so much to our listeners. Folks, please, please, please submit your stories, your topics to amithebolus@gmail.com, and follow us on Twitter at amithebolcast. And also, my name is Mike Carrozza. I'm at MikeCarrozza on Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow me there. I'm a stand-up comedian. I've got a comedy album. I've got dates coming up. I'm doing shows in Chicago before the big old Chicago Fest happening. So don't miss out on that. Michael, where can people find you?
You can find all of the stuff I do at gamesfreakessay.info. Those are the letters essay, not the word essay. So go on and check me out. You can find all my socials there, as well as all of my projects and my articles, How They Brew It, at Commander's Herald.
Perfect. Morgan, where can people find you?
I am on the site that is still known as Twitter at Indigo Gentleman. So feel free to come and talk and chat about most anything and everything.
Perfect. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the positive reception, by the way, to the first episode. This is the first time we're recording since the episode dropped. We do have like 10 episodes banked, but we record these after having the interviews recorded. A little bit of sincerity at the end of the episode. Thank you so much. The reception has been so nice. And if you have nice things to say, keep them coming. It makes it a lot easier to keep going when we know that folks out there are enjoying listening to the podcast. So once again, from the bottom of my heart, and it's a deep one, thank you so much. Don't make that face, Michael. All right. Bye, everybody. Good night. It's nighttime where you are now, apparently. Oh, wait. No. We need a sign off. What's the sign off? Don't be mean to anybody. That's it. That's what we're going with. What? You don't like it?
Don't be the bolus, you guys. Don't be the bolus. Try your best.
Don't be the bolus, be the Ugin.
Don't be the bolus, be the Ugin. We did it, everybody. I'm going to forget it for next time.